The ballroom lights glittered like 1,000 tiny suns, and the band cut its music as the billionaire CEO, Chike Okoye, tapped the microphone. Cameras swung toward him. Staff in tuxedos and sequin gowns stood shoulder to shoulder, waiting. DeAndre Cole, 26, sharp suit, sharper smile, stood close to the stage with a glass of champagne he hadn't tasted. He was already a rising star at Okoye Global, born to money, trained to win. Tonight was supposed to be his night too. Family, Mr. Okoye said, his baritone smooth and warm, I promised a surprise. He turned toward the staircase. Please welcome the woman who said yes to me. He extended a hand. And she descended. Nia. The poor ex-girlfriend he told himself he had outgrown. The same woman he had drenched with muddy water only hours earlier on a rain-slick Lagos road, laughing as his tinted SUV sped on. Now she wore a soft gold dress that caught light like a promise. Her natural curls framed her face, and her eyes, those same eyes that once saw hope in him, found DeAndre in the crowd and did not blink. DeAndre's grip on the champagne flute loosened. He heard the glass clink against his cufflink. The cameras kept rolling. Mr. Okoye kissed Nia's hand and lifted it high. My fiancée, he announced. Nia Adeyemi. The room exploded with applause. Influencers raised their phones. Senior partners cheered. A drone zipped above, catching the moment for every screen in Lagos and Atlanta. DeAndre felt the floor tilt under him. The word spun, fiancée. Nia Adeyemi. He had splashed her with muddy water this morning. He had rolled the window down and said, Watch the road, sweetheart, and his friends had laughed. He wanted to forget that now. He could not. Nia smiled for the cameras. A graceful public smile. But the private message in her eyes was cold as rain. DeAndre's heart thudded. He remembered the exact sound of the splash, the way the puddle leapt up at her like a slap. He remembered how she held a plastic folder tight to her chest so the papers inside wouldn't get wet. He remembered her jaw set, her clothes soaked, the smell of wet dust and diesel. He had told himself it wasn't his fault. The driver just moved too fast. But he had laughed. On stage, Mr. Okoye lifted the mic again. Tonight we celebrate love, and we celebrate our new community fund led by Nia, who has served quietly and faithfully in several shelters across Victoria Island. You'll hear more from her shortly. The applause rose again. DeAndre looked down at his shoes, polished enough to see his face. He saw sweat at his hairline. He saw a man who had built his life on being first to the table, first to the win, first to the toast. A man who never looked back. He dared one more look at Nia. She wore the bracelet he once bought her in a street market. Beads the color of palm wine and sunrise. He had not seen that bracelet since the day they ended. The day they ended felt far away now, but it lived under his skin. Back then, DeAndre had believed love was easy as a card swipe and a dinner reservation. He liked that Nia's laughter didn't sound like people at his father's club. He liked that she called the ocean by its Igbo name when the sun melted into water. He liked that she kept her shoes clean for church. He liked that she called him Dre, and not Mr. Cole. But when he brought her to his father's birthday, the compliments turned sharp. Lovely girl, someone said, but not quite the circle. A cousin whispered, she will pull you down like a bucket in a well. DeAndre pretended not to hear. He started to answer texts later. He started to cancel plans. Nia worked 2 jobs, taking care of her younger brother and sending money home to her aunt in Ibadan. She did not have time for games. When she asked if he planned to stand with her or leave, his pride chose for him. You should be with someone who fits you, he said then because it sounded generous. What fits me, she replied, is a heart that won't be ashamed of me. Her voice didn't shake. She gave him back the bracelet that day and he pressed it into his pocket like it burned. He told himself on the drive home that she'd thank him later. He never sent a message again. And this morning in the rain, the city was soaked with thunder and impatience. He had a meeting at 9. The road flooded near the market stalls. He was late. The SUV slowed then surged. Water leapt. Nia turned her face at the last second. Soaked. Her folder pressed to her chest. He rolled the window down for power, for performance, for a joke he did not need to make. Watch the road, sweetheart, he said. Their eyes met for a second that stretched like wire. His friends laughed. The driver rolled the window up. The wipers beat time. The SUV pulled away. Now the band began a soft tune as waiters passed small plates. DeAndre could not taste the air. He could only feel the heat in his cheeks. He checked his phone as if it were a shield. Messages poured in from friends standing feet away. Bro, that's your Nia? No way. You see this plot twist? A hand squeezed his shoulder. DeAndre flinched. Son, said Mr. Cole, his father, voice casual, Okoye is a king of timing. Good for the stock, this romance. You should congratulate him early. He likes decisive men. DeAndre looked from his father's diamond cufflinks to the stage where the billionaire smiled like tomorrow belonged to him. DeAndre had built pieces of that tomorrow. He had worked late on deals that made the company climb. He had followed the rules. He had told himself the world was fair to men who prepared. He imagined walking up to Nia and whispering an apology. But what apology could carry the weight of a puddle and a year of silence? He imagined shaking Mr. Okoye's hand and swallowing his shock. But how do you shake the hand of the man who is now about to marry the woman you taught yourself to forget by being cruel? The MC tapped the mic. Please welcome Ms. Adeyemi to share a few words about the community fund. Nia stepped forward. Her voice filled the room, calm, steady, warm. Thank you, everyone. I grew up where a missed meal can become a missed chance. There were people who helped us. I'm here to carry that help forward. She smiled at the staff, the interns, the cleaners standing along the wall. We will start with homework hubs and job training for families near the waterfront. We will also. Her gaze found DeAndre again and held it, not soft, not cruel. Exact. We will also do something smaller but important. Dry lockers at bus stops for folks who keep their papers safe in the rain. A ripple moved through the crowd, polite laughter at first, then a few nods from people who understood. DeAndre remembered the plastic folder to her chest. He felt something in him sag. She continued. Dignity is made of small things. A dry piece of paper. A kind word on a hard day. A beat. She could have looked anywhere. She did not. And a driver who slows for puddles. Only a few people understood the sting of that line. DeAndre felt every drop of it. The smile on Mr. Okoye's face did not change. He looked proud, happy, unaware of any private storm under his roof. The cameras captured the nobility of the moment and not the wound. The song ended. The MC thanked her. Applause followed her off the stage like river water following a boat. When Nia reached the last step, she turned and spoke to the billionaire. He bent to hear. They shared a look that was gentle and sure. DeAndre felt something ancient and small in him crack. He took one step toward the stage, then another. He didn't know if he was going to run, to hide, or to make it right. His father's hand landed on his arm like a command to stay put. DeAndre shook him off. The head of security shifted in his line of sight. A videographer swung the camera toward him, sensing drama like a dog senses rain. Mr. Okoye raised the microphone once more. Before dinner, I'd like to invite my brightest young executive to join us on stage. DeAndre Cole, my son in the firm, the one who will lead our expansion in Atlanta. Eyes turned. Space opened. DeAndre's name echoed, and for a breath he remembered how good it used to feel. Come, the billionaire said, beaming. I want Lagos and Atlanta to meet the future of this company, and the future of my family. Nia's bracelet flashed as she folded her hands. She did not move. She did not smile at him. She only watched. DeAndre climbed the steps. The stage lights were hot against his face. He shook Mr. Okoye's hand because that was what the world expected. The billionaire leaned in, all confidence and cologne. Son, Mr. Okoye whispered so only he could hear, meet the woman who will steady me. You will work closely with her. DeAndre nodded because his body knew how to nod even when his heart did not. He turned to Nia. She stepped forward, the gold dress whispered against the stage floor. Good evening, she said, her voice smooth enough to fool a camera. Underneath it was iron. Congratulations on your promotion. Thank you, he said, and he almost added her name, but it felt like claiming a thing that was no longer his to claim. She tilted her head the slightest bit. I remember the puddle, she said so softly that only he could hear. DeAndre opened his mouth. No words came. Nia looked past him toward the audience, toward the cameras, toward the glossy future that glowed like polished stone. She lifted the microphone with a steady hand. Her bracelet caught the light, beads the color of palm wine and sunrise. Before we eat, she said, there is something the room should know. The band fell silent again. The drone dipped closer. In the back, the head of security touched his earpiece. DeAndre felt the whole city hold its breath with him as Nia drew a breath of her own, turned to the billionaire at her side and began to speak, cutting straight toward a truth that could lift one man and bury another. The microphone hummed in Nia's hand, a quiet thread of sound under a room full of breath. DeAndre stood beside the billionaire, every muscle tight enough to ring like metal. Cameras perched like birds along the balcony rail. Somewhere in the ceiling, the small drone's green light blinked and blinked. There is something the room should know, Nia said, her voice steady. She looked over faces shining with powder and hope, over waiters with careful trays, over cleaners who stood in their neat uniforms along the wall. I've been poor enough to measure time in bus fares and borrowed shoes. Poor enough to count a dry envelope as a blessing. People think poverty is only big things. But it is also small things, like being soaked on the way to an interview and still walking in with your head up. A quiet ran through the hall. DeAndre could feel his jaw set. She hadn't used his name. Not yet. Nia went on. When the rain comes, it does not ask who is rich. It does not ask who is poor. It looks for the low places. People do that too sometimes. We pour our mud into other people's lives to keep our shoes clean. The fund we are launching tonight will build homework hubs, yes. But we will also build dry lockers at bus stops around the city. It sounds small. She smiled, not soft, not sharp. It is not. The audience clapped, some careful, some full. Chike Okoye, watchful, pleased, brushed a proud kiss across her temple. My fiancée, he said into his mic, warm as music, sees what matters. Nia stepped back, giving the billionaire the center of the stage again. The band found a polite rhythm. DeAndre's pulse backed off its drumbeat. She had not said it. Not here. Not now. He could breathe. He clapped because the whole room clapped and because habit is stronger than shame. The MC announced dinner. Servers poured back into motion like a tide. As the crowd turned toward long tables under hanging palms, Nia slipped from the stage with a grace that made the move look like light. DeAndre took the stairs down slower, like each step weighed more than the last. When his shoes touched the floor, his father appeared again, nodding toward a table near the front. Smile, Mr. Cole said under his breath. You are the future of this firm. Your face is the brand. My face is on fire, DeAndre said. Drink water, his father replied, as if thirst could fix a storm. Nia paused at the base of the stage, speaking to the head of the foundation team. DeAndre hovered by a pillar. He caught the faint scent of hibiscus and rain from her dress. He thought of how she used to scrub her sneakers on Saturday mornings with a toothbrush to keep them clean. He thought of the way she once folded a shirt for him as if soft fabric could change a hard day. He thought of a puddle. Ms. Adeyemi. The public relations director, a sharp woman named Saad, stepped up with a tablet tucked to her chest. Incredible remarks. The bus stop lockers detail, that will sing on the news. Thank you, Nia said. If we have a moment later, Saad added, there's a journalist from an Atlanta paper who wants a quote about your work. They're doing a feature on Mr. Okoye's expansion there. We'll speak, Nia promised. DeAndre took a breath and stepped forward. May I speak with you for 1 minute? He asked Nia. Saada's eyes flickered, reading tension like a headline. Nia nodded anyway and walked with DeAndre toward a side corridor where the air was cooler and the music dipped into a faraway hum. He started. No cameras here, she said, folding her arms. He stared at the tile for a heartbeat and then at her face. I'm sorry for this morning. It was raining last year too, she said. You were late for your father's party. You were late for almost every promise. But you were on time when you wanted to be cruel. He swallowed. I was a fool. I thought I was being funny. That is not an excuse. It is not, she said. And it does not matter if this apology is for the puddle or for how you left. It's for both, he said, and he meant it. His voice sounded small in his own ears. Nia studied him with a level gaze. I am doing well now, Dre. Not because of you. Not to spite you. I am doing well because I worked when I was tired, and because people who owe me nothing still gave me a lift when the road went dark. He thought of the billionaire, of strong hands and a stronger network. Did you meet him through the shelters? DeAndre asked. He hated how hungry it sounded, how much he needed to rewrite the story into something he could respect. A woman I volunteered with introduced me to him at a fundraiser, she said. We spoke about the river at Makoko, about jobs, about girls learning to code on borrowed phones. He listened. He came to see for himself. He did not send a driver. He came in old sneakers. He did not ask me to be smaller so he could shine. DeAndre felt the words land like stones. He imagined Mr. Okoye, worth more than the hotels he owned, walking down a muddy lane with his trousers rolled. He had never seen his father do that. He had never done it himself. I don't want to hurt your life, DeAndre said. If you are happy. I am, she said simply. He nodded. Then I will not say anything to him. About us. You do not need to, she replied. He knows I have a past. I asked him if he wanted a clean story or a true one. He picked true. She looked at him for a long second. You should try that too. Her phone buzzed once in her hand. She glanced at it and then looked back to him. Dinner is starting. Walk out there with your chin up. If they catch you looking guilty on camera, they will make a movie of it. He nodded again. Thank you, he said, and the words felt like pebbles in his mouth. She left him in the cool hallway with the sound of clinking glasses rising like distant rain. They took their seats. The billionaire at the head of the table. Nia at his right. DeAndre across from a window that held the reflection of a boy he almost recognized. Dishes arrived. Jollof rice shining with steam, grilled fish dusted with pepper, plantains candied by oil. He moved food around his plate. Laughter rose and fell around him. Son, Mr. Okoye said at one point, leaning over, Atlanta is yours if you prove hungry enough. New office. New contracts. I like men who eat what's on their plate. DeAndre tried a smile. He used to feel 10 feet tall when the billionaire spoke his name. Now the words landed and slid. Across the room, a TV above the bar cycled through coverage of the party. Nia's golden dress like soft light, the billionaire's easy smile, the logo of the new fund pulsing in aqua and white. The drone footage sent slow sweeps over the dance floor. The sound was off, but the images spoke. Power, romance, generosity. The city would drink this story like sweet tea. While the band reset for the next set, DeAndre's mind drifted back to the beginning, before the club talk, before the split. A humid July in Atlanta, where his father had sent him for school and exposure. He had met Nia in the campus library while visiting a friend. She was at a public terminal researching scholarships. Her brother had texted her a photo of a broken fan with a caption, "Heat is beating us." She laughed at the text and then caught DeAndre looking. He expected her to be shy. She wasn't. She asked him for the time and then told him his watch looked expensive enough to feed a street for a week. He liked that she didn't flinch when his driver's number rang and he said he would walk. They had eaten suya in the park and talked about names, about how his held weight like an anchor and hers moved like wind. She had told him a story her aunt loved to repeat. When a child climbs a tree, the village looks at the tree, not the child. We fix the branches so children stop falling. He had nodded like he understood. He had not understood. They dated across time zones and pay grades, through semesters and job fairs. She got a position at a shelter. He got a desk on the 22nd floor. He brought her to a room with glass walls and let the city below them be his gift. She brought him to a soup kitchen and asked him to slice onions with her until his eyes burned and the smell lived in his shirt. They taught each other different kinds of hunger. It could have lasted. It did not. Now, in the glow of the gala, DeAndre watched the man she would marry lean close to hear her whisper. He saw how she smiled at the servers and the interns as if they were her peers and not her stage. He saw her finger trace the edge of her water glass like she had done when they were waiting for bus 105 together, counting coins and clouds. Saad, the PR director, appeared at the table. She bent toward Mr. Okoye and spoke low. His eyebrows lifted. He passed her his phone. She looked at something on it and frowned. Then she kept moving, weaving between chairs, tapping shoulders, collecting eyes. A ripple of attention moved with her like a shadow crossing a field. DeAndre's own phone buzzed on the table. A message from a friend lit the screen. You're trending for the wrong reason, bro. Another buzz. Do not check Twitter at dinner. A third, is this you? His thumb hovered. He told himself not to look. He looked. It was a grainy video posted minutes ago by a market woman whose stall sat near the bus stop on Adeola Odiku. A caption rode the top. Rich boy in big car, watch your water. In the clip, rain hammered. The SUV slowed, then surged. The puddle rose like a slap. A young woman held a folder to her chest. The passenger window slid down. The camera caught the side of a face, a profile cut by rain. Laughter bled through the storm like a nervous song. The clip ended as quickly as it began. In the comments, someone had circled the profile and written a name, DeAndre. He felt his stomach turn. Across the hall, Saad reached Nia and showed her the same screen. Nia's face did not move. She lifted her eyes slowly from the phone to the table where DeAndre sat. For a heartbeat, the room shrank to a straight line between them. At the head of the table, the billionaire's own phone vibrated on linen. He picked it up, glanced down, and then looked up at DeAndre, not angry yet, not understanding yet, only confused like a man who has heard thunder and is counting the seconds until lightning finds the ground. Dre, the billionaire said softly, over the hum of a party that suddenly sounded far away. Is there something I should know? The TV above the bar switched from the gala feed to the viral clip, the rain now filling every screen in the room. Conversations thinned, then stopped. A spoon dropped. Somewhere a chair scraped the floor. Nia set her napkin on her plate as if this were any normal dinner and stood, grace turning into steel. She reached for the microphone at the end of the table without asking the MC and looked straight at DeAndre as she raised it to her mouth. "Let us all watch together," she said, voice calm and firm, "what some people call a joke." The screen replayed the splash one more time, slower now, crueler. The window slid down again. The laugh was louder. The room turned toward DeAndre as if pulled by a tide, and his father's hand found his shoulder, heavy as stone, just as the head of security stepped into the aisle and began to walk toward him. The laughter from the viral clip echoed through the hall, slicing through the soft hum of the air conditioners. Every face, executives, guests, staff, turned toward DeAndre as if waiting for him to defend himself. His chest tightened, his throat felt dry. The screen froze on his face, the unmistakable smirk from that rainy morning. The same smirk that once made boardrooms trust him now made the crowd recoil. "Turn it off," Mr. Okoye said quietly to the AV operator, but it was too late. The image had already burned into everyone's mind. Nia stood near the edge of the stage, microphone still in hand, her eyes fixed on DeAndre, not with hate, not with pity, but with the kind of disappointment that reached deeper than anger. The billionaire glanced between them, confusion spreading like smoke. DeAndre rose slowly. "Sir, is that you in the video?" Mr. Okoye asked, his calm voice trembling just slightly. "Yes," DeAndre said, forcing the words out. "But it's not what it looks like." A low murmur swept across the tables. Someone whispered, "Of course it's what it looks like." Another muttered, "These rich kids don't even see people anymore." Nia lowered the mic. "It's exactly what it looks like," she said softly, but the microphone caught her voice anyway. "You laughed while the rain turned my papers to pulp. You didn't even ask if I was okay." "I didn't know it was you." DeAndre's voice cracked. "It was raining. Stop," Nia said, shaking her head. "Even if it wasn't me, no one deserves that. You thought kindness was optional because you were late to a meeting?" The billionaire's chair creaked as he stood. "You knew each other before?" Nia looked at him, the gold of her dress trembling faintly with her breath. "Yes." "What?" "A long time ago." DeAndre's father interjected, "Mr. Okoye, this is a misunderstanding. Boys make mistakes. He's a good kid." "A boy?" Nia's tone sharpened. "He's 26. A grown man in a suit who thinks his father's shadow can clean his messes." The billionaire raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Let's all sit," he said. "This is not the place." But his eyes stayed locked on DeAndre's face. DeAndre felt the heat of shame crawl up his neck. He wanted to explain how he had grown up measuring worth and status, how he had learned arrogance the same way others learn prayers. But explanations sounded like excuses. He bowed his head slightly. "Mr. Okoye, I'm sorry for embarrassing your event. Your name was wrong. I can't undo it." Nia's eyes softened a fraction, but she didn't speak. The billionaire nodded once, slowly. "You'll meet me in my office tomorrow morning. 7 sharp." DeAndre opened his mouth to answer, but the older man was already turning away, one hand at Nia's back as he led her gently toward the exit. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered into phones. The room buzzed with hungry attention. DeAndre felt the walls closing in. His father hissed under his breath, "You've ruined everything. Do you know what this means for our family? For the contract?" DeAndre didn't answer. He watched as Nia disappeared through the side door, her gold dress catching one last shard of light. He wanted to run after her, to beg her to believe he wasn't the same man anymore, but what proof did he have? He sat, staring at his untouched plate of food. The laughter from the video replayed in his head like thunder in a tunnel. The next morning the rain returned. The city smelled of wet dust and diesel again, just like that morning. DeAndre stood outside the Okoye Global Tower, clutching an umbrella he didn't open. His suit was immaculate, but his spirit felt wrinkled. Inside, the receptionist's polite smile faltered when she saw him. "Mr. Cole, they're expecting you." He nodded and walked through the glass doors into the boardroom. Mr. Okoye sat at the head of the long table. Nia was there too, dressed in a cream blouse and dark skirt, her face unreadable. "Sit down," the billionaire said. DeAndre obeyed. Mr. Okoye leaned forward, elbows on the table. "DeAndre, when I hire people, I look for integrity. The kind of person who treats the cleaner the same way they treat the chairman. What I saw yesterday was not integrity. It was cruelty." "I know, sir," DeAndre said quietly. "And I have no excuse." "I don't want excuses," the billionaire said. "I want truth. Were you and Nia once together?" DeAndre hesitated. "Yes, sir." Nia looked down at the table. "And you ended things?" "I did, DeAndre admitted. I thought I was doing her a favor. The billionaire gave a sad smile. You thought money meant favor. DeAndre nodded slowly. I was raised to believe that. Mr. Okoye sat back. You've embarrassed this company and humiliated a woman you once claimed to love. I should fire you right now. He paused. But I won't. Not yet. DeAndre blinked. Sir? You'll stay, Mr. Okoye said, but under her supervision. Nia looked up sharply. Under me? Yes, the billionaire said. You'll report to her for the next 6 months. Every project, every outreach. You'll rebuild what your arrogance destroyed. DeAndre swallowed hard. If that's what it takes to make it right, I'll do it. Mr. Okoye nodded, stood, and left the room without another word. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to bend steel. Nia spoke first. You don't have to do this for me. I'm not doing it for you, he said quietly. I'm doing it because the man in that video disgusts me. She studied him for a long time, then sighed. We'll see if you mean that. By the end of the day, social media was still on fire. Memes, hashtags, angry think pieces, hashtag splash of shame, hashtag puddle privilege, hashtag rich versus right. Every post carried his face, his laugh, his mistake. That night he couldn't sleep. The rain kept falling outside his window. He replayed every second of his past with Nia, how he once held her hand in the market, how she teased him for not knowing the price of Gary, how she said love wasn't about who had more but who gave more. He remembered how he'd brushed that off, thinking it was her poverty speaking. Now he understood, it was her wisdom. At dawn his phone buzzed. A message from Nia. Be at the waterfront by 8 a.m. Don't wear a suit. He stared at the text for a long time, then smiled faintly for the first time in days. The waterfront smelled of salt and smoke. Kids played with old tires by the edge. Volunteers unloaded boxes of donated clothes from a van. Nia stood near the pier, her hair tied back, clipboard in hand. She looked different here, at peace. When she saw him, she nodded. Good. You came. He gestured to the crates. What's all this? Supplies for the new homework hub, she said. And those lockers you mocked without knowing it? He walked closer. How can I help? She handed him a hammer and pointed to a row of half-assembled wooden lockers. Build. He smiled faintly. That I can do. As he worked beside the volunteers, sweat dripping, Nia occasionally glanced at him. He wasn't giving orders. He wasn't checking his phone. He was listening, really listening, to the people around him. For the first time she saw the boy she once loved hiding beneath the man who had lost his way. But just as the day began to soften, a black SUV pulled up near the pier. It wasn't his. It was Mr. Okoye's. The billionaire stepped out, flanked by 2 security aides, his expression unreadable. Nia frowned. You didn't tell me he was coming? I didn't know, DeAndre said, wiping his hands. The billionaire approached slowly, eyes scanning the new lockers and the volunteers. So this is where my staff now spend their time, he said evenly. Building boxes. Nia straightened. They're more than boxes, sir. They're dignity. Mr. Okoye nodded once, then turned to DeAndre. And you? What have you built today? DeAndre met his gaze. A small start. The billionaire said nothing for a long while, then turned toward the water. Sometimes the smallest starts lead to the biggest changes. But remember, repentance means nothing without consistency. Nia folded her arms, studying the 2 men. There was something unreadable in her eyes, a storm brewing behind calm seas. She finally said, maybe this city isn't the only thing that needs rebuilding. The wind shifted. The clouds above them gathered. And though the rain had not yet started, everyone could smell it coming. What would you have done if you were Nia, faced with someone who once humiliated you but now seeks redemption? Do people really change? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, remember to like this video, subscribe for more powerful African folktale dramas, and share it with friends who love good storytelling. Also, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing our viewers from all over the world. The rain finally came that evening, slow and steady, as if the heavens themselves were eavesdropping on unfinished business. The volunteers packed up early, leaving the waterfront quiet except for the rhythmic splash of water against the wooden pier. DeAndre stayed behind, hammer in hand, tightening the last bolt on the final locker. He didn't look up when Nia approached, her umbrella tilted slightly against the wind. You didn't have to finish it tonight, she said. He kept his eyes on the board. I didn't have to splash you either. But I did. Finishing this is the least I can do. She sighed softly. You think work will erase shame? No, he said. but it's a place to start. For a long moment neither spoke. The city lights blinked across the water, reflections shimmering like restless ghosts. Nia watched him work, his once perfect shirt now smeared with sawdust, his hands blistered, his silence heavy but honest. "I didn't expect you to come back," she finally said. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But when I saw that video, I realized I'd turned into the kind of man my mother prayed I wouldn't become." Nia frowned slightly. "Your mother?" He nodded. "She died when I was 17. She used to wash clothes for people. My father married rich later and suddenly poverty became something I was told to forget. But I never forgot her hands. I just buried the memory so deep I couldn't feel it anymore." Nia's eyes softened. "And now? Now it's all I feel." The rain grew heavier. He looked up at her. "I don't expect forgiveness, Nia. I just need a chance to fix the man I became." She held his gaze for a long time before speaking. "Forgiveness isn't a gift, it's a process. And sometimes it takes longer than love ever did." He nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. "Then I'll wait as long as it takes." Just then a car horn blared behind them. A sleek black car stopped near the pier. The window rolled down. It was Mr. Okoye again. His eyes lingered on the two of them standing close under the rain, and something unreadable flickered across his face. "Mr. Cole," he called, "you can go home. Miss Adeyemi and I have a dinner meeting." Nia turned slightly, surprised. "Dinner?" "Yes," said the billionaire with a polite smile. "There's something I'd like to discuss, something that concerns both of us." DeAndre looked between them, the familiar ache in his chest returning. "Of course, sir," he said quietly. He handed the hammer to Nia, nodded once and walked away, rain soaking through his shirt. As he disappeared down the road, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that something in Mr. Okoye's tone had changed. Something colder, sharper. Dinner was at a private lounge overlooking the lagoon. The billionaire ordered for both of them without asking. He was charming as always, but there was a flicker of tension under his calm exterior. "You've been spending quite some time with DeAndre," he began. Nia raised an eyebrow. "He's rebuilding himself and you asked me to supervise him." "I did," he said, swirling his wine. "But tell me, Nia, has he told you why he really stayed?" "I assume guilt." Mr. Okoye smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Guilt is a powerful motivator. But so is ambition." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "Men like DeAndre only learn humility when they're losing. I know his type, I once was him. They don't help unless it helps them." Nia studied him carefully. "You think he's pretending?" "I think he's dangerous to your peace," the billionaire said softly. "And I won't allow anyone to disturb the woman I intend to marry." Nia's fork froze midair. "Is that what this is about, control?" "No," he said smoothly. "It's about protection. You're pure, Nia. You still believe in people. That's why I love you. But that boy, he's a shadow. And I won't let him drag you back into the mud he came from." Nia felt a chill crawl up her spine. The tone in his voice was different, possessive, almost threatening. "Maybe," she said carefully, "you don't know him as well as you think." He smiled again, this time with steel behind it. "And maybe you don't know me." The following morning, DeAndre arrived at the office early, only to find his desk moved out of the executive suite and placed near the interns' cubicles. A note from HR read, "Temporary reassignment under Foundation outreach." He said nothing. He simply adjusted his chair and began typing proposals for the next community project. Hours later, Nia walked in holding a folder. She paused when she saw him there among the junior staff. "You don't have to take this humiliation," she said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe I do. Maybe this is what accountability looks like." She sat across from him. "You really have changed, haven't you?" He met her eyes. "I'm trying. But I think your fiancé wants me gone." She hesitated. "He told me you were dangerous." DeAndre chuckled sadly. "Dangerous? I was arrogant, not armed." "That's not what he meant." "What did he mean, Nia?" Before she could answer, Mr. Okoye himself appeared at the doorway, expression stern. "Miss Adeyemi, a word." She stood quickly and followed him to his office, leaving DeAndre's heart pounding with unease. Inside, the billionaire closed the door behind her. "You've become distracted," he said quietly. "You defend him." "I don't defend him, I see growth." "Isn't that what you wanted?" He smiled faintly. "No, my dear. I wanted closure. I wanted you free from your past. But now I fear your compassion will cost you everything." "What are you saying?" He turned to the window, hands clasped behind his back. If you continue to let that man near you, I'll have to reconsider both his employment and our engagement. The words hit her like a slap. You're threatening me? I'm protecting you, he said coldly. From men who only remember kindness when they're desperate. She stared at him, realizing for the first time that beneath the billionaire's elegance lay something darker, possessiveness disguised as love. Nia's heart pounded. You can't control who I forgive. He turned, his voice firm but low. I can control who works for me. She met his eyes. Then maybe that's the only thing you ever truly loved, control. He didn't answer. He simply waved a hand toward the door. You may leave. Outside the office, Nia stood for a long moment, trembling. Everything inside her felt divided, part rage, part sorrow. She walked straight to DeAndre's desk. He looked up. What happened? She forced a small smile. Pack your things. You're leaving. He froze. I've been fired? No, she said softly. We're leaving. He frowned. What do you mean? She grabbed his hand. There's something you need to see. Something I should have told you earlier. They left the building together, the hum of the city swallowing them whole. Nia led him to a small compound on the outskirts of Lagos, a shelter run by an old woman named Mama Risi. Children played in the muddy courtyard, their laughter rising over the smell of roasted corn. This is where I started, Nia said. And where I hid when the world had nothing left for me. DeAndre's gaze softened. You built all this? She shook her head. We built it. Every woman who was abandoned, every boy who was mocked, every mother who prayed for mercy. We made it with our hands. He looked around, overwhelmed. This is beautiful. She turned to him, eyes fierce. And it's what his money will never understand. DeAndre studied her face, the glow of strength behind her tired eyes. You're not the same woman I left. She smiled faintly. And you're not the same man who left me. The rain began to fall again, light this time, warm and forgiving. Nia tilted her face toward the sky. Maybe this is what redemption looks like. But DeAndre wasn't sure, because far away, inside a black SUV parked near the entrance, a camera lens clicked softly. Mr. Okoye's security man was recording everything. And when the video reached the billionaire's desk, it would ignite a storm that neither of them saw coming. The next morning broke heavy with gray clouds that pressed low over the city. DeAndre woke to a string of missed calls, each more urgent than the last. His father's voice message came through first, sharp and panicked. Son, what have you done? The boss is furious. He says you're plotting against him, with her. DeAndre sat up, heart pounding. He glanced at his phone screen. Dozens of notifications blinked in red. Mentions, messages, gossip headlines. Billionaire's fiancée spotted in secret meeting with disgraced employee. The same woman from the viral splash video, seen holding hands with her ex. Holding hands? He frowned. Then he remembered, yesterday when Nia had pulled him through the shelter gate, she'd held his hand for less than a second. But to a camera's lens that second was a lifetime. He jumped from bed, threw on a shirt and raced out the door. By the time he reached the office, the lobby felt like a crime scene. Employees whispered in corners, eyes darting toward him. The receptionist didn't meet his gaze. Mr. Okoye wants to see you, she murmured, sliding a visitor badge across the desk. He walked the long corridor, each footstep sounding louder than the last. When he entered the conference room, Nia was already there, pale, silent, staring out the window. The billionaire stood at the far end, hands behind his back, jaw tight. I saw the video, Mr. Okoye said, not turning around. Quite touching. Two ex-lovers rebuilding lockers for the poor. Almost noble. Almost. Sir, DeAndre began. Quiet. The billionaire's voice snapped like a whip. You think I don't know manipulation when I see it? You're using her to crawl back into favor. And you, he turned to Nia, you're too kind to see it. Nia's voice trembled, though her face stayed firm. You're wrong, Chike. This isn't manipulation. It's redemption. You told me you wanted him to change, well now he's trying. Mr. Okoye laughed under his breath. Trying? Or pretending? He's playing the victim, Nia. That's what men like him do when their pride is cornered. DeAndre stepped forward. Sir, you have every right to hate me for what I did. But don't twist what's pure into something dirty. I've made mistakes, but I'm not plotting anything. I'm only trying to become worthy of forgiveness. Forgiveness? The billionaire's eyes narrowed. Forgiveness doesn't come after humiliation. It comes after honesty. Tell me, DeAndre, are you being honest about your intentions toward my fiancée? The word fiancée cut deep. DeAndre swallowed hard. I respect Nia. That's all. I'll never hurt her again. Respect. The billionaire's voice lowered dangerously. Then prove it by resigning. Today. Nia turned sharply. What? Mr. Okoye looked at her coldly. He works for me. His employment is a privilege, not a right. If you can't see the problem, I will fix it. Nia stood, anger flashing. This isn't about professionalism, is it? This is about jealousy. Silence. The billionaire's expression hardened. Be careful, Nia. Careful? She repeated, stepping closer. Of what? Speaking the truth. You think love means control. But love isn't a contract, Chike. It's trust. And if you don't have that, then all the money in the world won't keep me here. DeAndre's breath caught. The billionaire's knuckles tightened around the edge of the table. You'd walk away from a man who gave you everything? He said slowly. Shelter, respect, name? Nia's voice softened. You didn't give me those things, Chike. I earned them. I built myself before you ever found me. The billionaire turned, facing the window, his shoulders rising and falling with controlled fury. Leave, he said quietly. Who? Nia asked. Both of you. DeAndre opened his mouth to speak, but Nia touched his arm. Don't, she whispered. He's not listening. They walked out together, their footsteps echoing down the marble floor. Behind them, the billionaire's reflection in the glass stayed still, unmoving, unreadable. Hours later, Nia and DeAndre sat at a small roadside cafe, far from the tower's glossy perfection. Rain had turned the street to mud again. Vendors shouted from under makeshift tarps, and the smell of fried yam hung thick in the air. I don't even know what to say, Nia murmured, stirring her tea. DeAndre shook his head. You don't owe me anything. If anyone's to blame, it's me. I should have left when the first scandal broke. Nia looked up at him. You've changed, DeAndre. You're not the boy who laughed at puddles anymore. He smiled faintly. And you're not the girl who cried because of them. They both chuckled softly. The laughter felt light, real even if just for a moment. But their peace shattered when a black car rolled to a stop nearby. It wasn't a random vehicle. They both recognized the license plate. Mr. Okoye stepped out, coat draped over his shoulders, flanked by his driver. His face was calm, but his eyes burned cold. He walked toward their table and the cafe fell silent. Vendors froze. Even the rain seemed to pause. So this is where you run to, he said quietly. Nia stood. Chike, please. This isn't what it looks like. He tilted his head. You seem to say that often these days. DeAndre stood too. Sir, if you have something to say it to me. The billionaire smiled faintly. Very well. He leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. You want to play humble? Then I'll make you taste what real humility feels like. DeAndre frowned. What do you mean? You'll see, Mr. Okoye said, turning away. By tomorrow, everyone in this city will. He slid into his car, slammed the door and drove off, tires splashing through the mud. Nia sank back into her chair, trembling. He's going to do something. I can feel it. DeAndre stared into the street where the taillights disappeared. Then we'd better be ready. By morning the headlines had changed again, this time worse. Disgraced executive DeAndre Cole accused of stealing from Okoye Global Foundation. Billionaire fiancée distances herself from scandal. Photos from the shelter flashed across every blog. The story claimed DeAndre had diverted funds meant for the children's project. Fake bank statements, fake witnesses, everything perfectly planted. At the bottom of the article was a photo, Nia handing DeAndre a brown envelope at the shelter. It wasn't money. It had been a list of donor names. But no one cared about the truth anymore. Nia stormed into DeAndre's apartment, holding her phone. Did you see this? Yes, he said, voice hollow. He's framing me. She paced, tears brimming. He's using his media contacts. Every outlet is copying the same story. This could destroy your life. He nodded slowly. And yours if you stand beside me. She froze, staring at him. Then we'll fight it together. He shook his head. No, Nia. I dragged you into this once. I won't do it again. But she stepped closer, gripping his arm. You don't get to decide that. I'm not the woman who hides anymore. Their eyes met, and for the first time the world outside didn't matter. The rain, the rumors, the ruin, they were background noise to a moment of shared defiance. Yet as they stood there, the television flickered on automatically. Breaking news. A reporter's voice filled the room. Police have issued an arrest warrant for Mr. DeAndre Cole, former executive at Okoye Global. over allegations of foundation fraud. Sources say billionaire Chike Okoye provided key evidence himself. The camera cut to Mr. Okoye, standing before microphones, his voice calm and polished. "We cannot tolerate corruption in this company. Betrayal, no matter how small, must be rooted out." Nia's knees nearly gave way. DeAndre caught her just as the sound of sirens rose outside the window. "They're coming," she whispered. DeAndre's jaw tightened. "Then let them." The sirens grew louder, flashing blue lights painting the room like a warning. Nia's heart pounded as DeAndre took her hands. "If I go down, I'll go down with the truth," he said quietly. "And the truth is, you were the only good thing I ever had." Police footsteps thundered up the stairs. Outside, the rain came harder, washing the city in the same muddy water that once started it all. And this time it would wash away more than pride, it would test love itself. The knock on the door wasn't gentle, it was thunder. "Open up. Lagos police." Nia's pulse leapt. DeAndre's apartment door rattled again under the weight of a fist. She looked at him, fear flickering in her eyes. "Dre, you can't let them take you. Not for something you didn't do." He ran a trembling hand over his face. "If I run, I'll look guilty. If I stay, I'll lose everything. Either way, he wins." The door burst open. Two officers stepped inside, water dripping from their rain-soaked uniforms. The taller one raised a folded paper. "Mr. DeAndre Cole, you are under arrest for the misappropriation of funds belonging to the Okoye Global Foundation. You have the right to remain silent." Nia stepped in front of him, her voice trembling but strong. "You can't arrest him without hearing his side." The officer hesitated. "Madam, we have an order signed by the magistrate." "Step aside." DeAndre looked at her and whispered, "It's okay. Don't fight them. I'll handle this." She shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "He framed you, Dre. You can't go quietly." DeAndre placed a gentle hand on her cheek, his thumb wiping away one tear before it fell. Sometimes silence says more than shouting ever could. The officers handcuffed him. As they led him out into the rain, the crowd that had gathered in front of the building began to whisper. Some took pictures. Others pointed. Every flash of a phone camera felt like another nail in the coffin of his reputation. "Please don't take him like this," Nia cried. The officer turned. "We're only doing our job, ma'am." They shoved him into the van and drove off, leaving Nia standing alone in the downpour. Her dress clung to her body, her hair slicked to her face, but she didn't move. At the police station, DeAndre sat in a damp cell that smelled of rust and regret. The clank of the metal door echoed behind him. He could still hear Nia's voice, trembling with rage and sorrow. Hours passed. No food. No lawyer. No peace. He was dozing on the cold concrete when the sound of heels clicked down the hallway. A familiar voice followed. "I'm here to see him, Nia." The officer unlocked the door and she stepped inside, carrying a small folder and an umbrella dripping from the rain. Her eyes were fierce now, no longer afraid. "You shouldn't have come," DeAndre said weakly. "You shouldn't have trusted silence," she replied, crouching beside him. "But we're not done. I found something." She opened the folder. Inside were documents, copies of transfer records, foundation budgets, and donor receipts. Chike's people forged the transfers. "Look here." She pointed to a date. "This supposed transaction happened while you were at the outreach site. There's CCTV footage to prove it. The money was never moved, it was rerouted internally." DeAndre frowned. "How did you get this?" Nia smirked faintly. "Let's just say Mama Reese has more friends than the billionaire knows. One of them works in the foundation's accounting department." For the first time in days, DeAndre smiled. "You're incredible." Nia stood. "Save that. We still need to get you out." As if on cue, the officer from earlier appeared at the bars. "You have a visitor. Says he's your legal representative." DeAndre looked at Nia. "Did you call someone?" She shook her head. The officer opened the door and in walked a tall man in a navy blue suit. He looked polished, confident, almost too much so. "Mr. Cole," he said warmly, "I'm Barrister Kenechukwu. Sent by Mr. Okoye himself." DeAndre stiffened. "By him?" The lawyer smiled. "Yes. He asked me to handle your release personally. He says he wants no hard feelings." Nia crossed her arms. "No hard feelings? After framing him?" The lawyer's expression didn't change. "Miss Adeyemi, my client has nothing to do with this arrest. He only wants peace. Mr. Cole will be released tonight, but on one condition." DeAndre's jaw tightened. "What condition?" That you issue a public apology, the lawyer said smoothly. Say it was a misunderstanding. Say the foundation's name was never misused. Say you resign from your position permanently and will not pursue any legal case. Nia's eyes blazed. That's blackmail. The lawyer shrugged. Call it diplomacy. My client could crush this matter or make it vanish. The choice is yours. DeAndre hesitated. He looked at Nia, then at the folder in her hand, the evidence that could clear him. If I don't agree? He asked quietly. The lawyer smiled thinly. Then the video of your so-called charity meetings with Miss Adeyemi might find its way to the press again. But this time, with a different narrative. Nia's heart dropped. He wouldn't? Oh, he would, the lawyer said. The public loves a scandal. And my client knows how to feed them. DeAndre looked down, his knuckles white around the bench. Get out, he said. Think carefully, the lawyer warned. I said get out. The lawyer sighed, closed his folder, and left without another word. When the cell door clanged shut, silence filled the room again, except for Nia's quiet, shaking breath. I told you, she whispered, he's dangerous. DeAndre looked up, eyes burning. Then we fight him with the truth. She knelt beside him, determination returning. Tomorrow we'll go to the press with our own evidence. Not the tabloids he owns, the independent reporters. If we show them the forged transfers and CCTV footage, they'll expose him. DeAndre frowned. He'll try to stop you. I'm not afraid anymore, she said. Not of him, not of anyone. He reached for her hand through the bars. Promise me something. What? If this goes bad, if he comes after you, run. She shook her head. No. Not without you. A faint smile touched his lips. You always were stubborn. And you always needed someone to keep you human, she replied softly. They sat there, hand in hand, as the rain outside softened to a hush. The next morning the story broke, only not the one they expected. An independent online newspaper had published an exposé. Insider reveals, Okoye Global Foundation laundering donations through offshore accounts. Attached were screenshots, transfer slips, and confidential emails, every one of them damning. And at the bottom of the article was a single line. Documents provided anonymously by an employee known only as Eagle. Nia gasped when she saw it. This isn't from me. Who? Before she could finish, DeAndre's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I told you silence says more than shouting. A friend. He stared at the message, confused, but before he could reply, his phone rang again. Mama Risi. DeAndre, her voice crackled over the line. Police are here again. But not for you. They're going to his mansion. DeAndre and Nia looked at each other, stunned. His mansion? She repeated. Mama Risi continued. They say the government is investigating his company for fraud. Everything's collapsing. Nia sat back slowly, disbelief washing over her. Someone else took him down before we could. DeAndre's voice was barely a whisper. But who? The answer came that evening when they turned on the television. A news anchor spoke urgently. Breaking news. Billionaire businessman Chike Okoye has been detained by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission following allegations of money laundering and tax evasion. Sources say evidence was submitted anonymously last night by an insider within his company. Nia covered her mouth. He's been caught. DeAndre exhaled deeply, his body shaking with relief. It's over. But as they watched the footage of the billionaire being escorted out in handcuffs, a thought crept into Nia's mind, one that chilled her blood. The camera zoomed in on Mr. Okoye's face as he turned toward the lens. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shocked. He was smiling. A small, knowing, unsettling smile. Nia felt her stomach twist. Why does it feel like he planned this? DeAndre's smile faded too. Because maybe he did. The rain outside returned, harder this time. The sound filled the silence between them, as if the city itself knew that the storm had only just begun. For 3 days, Lagos buzzed like a hornet's nest. The headlines didn't sleep. Every radio, every television, every gossip blog screamed the same words. Billionaire profit exposed. Nia watched it all from the shelter's small office, her phone vibrating non-stop. Donors wanted statements. Reporters wanted interviews. And deep down she wanted quiet. DeAndre paced beside her. He hadn't smiled once since the news broke. Something doesn't feel right, he said finally. You saw his face on TV. He wasn't scared. He looked ready. Nia rubbed her temples. I know. That smile, it's haunting me. Just then, the shelter's old television flickered to life with breaking news. The anchor's tone was urgent. New developments in the Okoye scandal. Insiders claimed the billionaire had been planning to transfer his company shares to a hidden successor weeks before the arrest. Sources say a mysterious power of attorney was filed under a name kept secret by his lawyers. DeAndre stopped pacing. Hidden successor? Nia turned to him. Who could that be? Before either could answer, a knock came at the door. A tall, well-dressed woman stepped in, umbrella dripping. She looked around briefly, her perfume sharp and expensive. Nia Adeyemi? Yes. The woman smiled coolly. I'm Adaora, senior partner at A. Kinwale & Company. Mr. Okoye's legal team. DeAndre tensed instantly. He's in custody. What does his lawyer want? Adaora handed Nia a sealed envelope. A message. He wrote it before his arrest and asked that it be delivered to you personally, should anything happen. Nia hesitated, then took it. The envelope was heavy, her name written in a familiar, steady hand. Adaora adjusted her glasses. He also instructed me to remind you that every gift has a price, and that you've not yet paid yours. Before they could respond, she left, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. DeAndre frowned. What does that even mean? Nia tore the envelope open. Inside was a single page and a flash drive. The letter read, Nia, if you're reading this, then you already know the world believes I've fallen. But in truth, I've only stepped aside. I built my empire on knowledge, and I know who betrayed me and who did not. You think you've escaped the mud, but the mud remembers everyone who stepped in it. Insert the drive. See what loyalty looks like. Check. Nia's fingers trembled as she looked at the flash drive. DeAndre moved closer. Don't, he said. This could be a trap. But curiosity won. She inserted it into the shelter's old laptop. A video opened, a security recording from one of Okoye Global's boardrooms, timestamped 2 weeks before the gala. The billionaire sat at the head of the table, flanked by executives. DeAndre's father was among them. The billionaire's voice filled the room. Gentlemen, we're restructuring. But should anything happen to me, control will pass to my designated heir, whose identity will remain confidential until the transfer is activated. DeAndre froze. My father was there? Nia nodded slowly. And look at this part. The camera zoomed as the billionaire handed a sealed envelope to DeAndre's father. Mr. Cole, Okoye said in the recording, keep this safe. When the time comes, your son will need it more than he knows. Nia's eyes widened. Your son? DeAndre's throat went dry. He said, your son. They stared at each other, realization dawning. Why would my father? Before he could finish, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're the new heir. Come alone. Attached was a location pin, Okoye's private mansion on Banana Island. Nia's voice wavered. It's him. He's calling you in. DeAndre shook his head. He's under arrest. He can't send texts. She grabbed his arm. Then someone's doing it for him. Dre, this could be a setup. He looked at the message again, the pulse in his neck thudding. Or it's the only way to end this. By nightfall, the city had gone quiet under another heavy rain. DeAndre parked a borrowed car outside the mansion gates. The once guarded estate was dark, almost abandoned. He stepped out, rain drumming on his hood. The gates creaked open by themselves. He hesitated, then walked through. The lights inside the mansion flickered as he entered. Every portrait on the wall seemed to watch him. In the living room, a single lamp burned, and beside it, sitting calmly with a glass of wine, was his father. Dad. Mr. Cole looked up slowly, a weary smile touching his face. You shouldn't have come, son. DeAndre frowned. You sent the text? No, his father said. He did. A voice rose from the shadows. Welcome home, DeAndre. DeAndre turned. From the far end of the room, dressed in a dark overcoat, stepped Chike Okoye. Not in handcuffs. Not under arrest. Free. Nia had been right, he'd planned this. DeAndre staggered back. How are you out? The billionaire chuckled. I was never truly in. The reports, the arrest, the scandal, all smoke. The EFCC found what I allowed them to find. The real money is untouchable. His eyes gleamed. And now we begin again with the next generation. DeAndre shook his head. I don't understand. Oh, you will. He turned to Mr. Cole. You trained your boy well, just as I asked. What? DeAndre whispered. Mr. Cole sighed. Son. The truth is complicated. Try me. Chike smiled. Your father and I have been partners for years. Every business you touched, every deal you made, it was training. You thought I noticed you by chance? I built you to replace me. DeAndre's pulse hammered. Replace you? Why me? Because you're brilliant, Chike said simply. And because loyalty runs deeper when it's tested through humiliation. That puddle, that gala, your arrest, each was a chapter in your initiation. DeAndre stepped back, voice shaking. You destroyed my name. I refined it, Chike said softly. I stripped away your arrogance. Now you can rise clean, reborn from scandal. People love redemption stories. You'll be the perfect front. Mr. Cole placed a trembling hand on his son's shoulder. It's already done, DeAndre. Your name is on the new company documents. You're inheriting everything. DeAndre looked from his father to the billionaire, disbelief curdling into anger. No. I won't be part of your twisted empire. Chike's smile faded. You don't have a choice. The public thinks I'm gone. You'll step in as the savior who rebuilds what I ruined. The same people who condemned you will worship you. I'll run things from the shadows. DeAndre clenched his fists. You think I'll sell my soul to fix your sins? The billionaire leaned closer. You already did the day you laughed at that puddle. You're me, DeAndre. You just don't see it yet. Lightning flashed through the windows. From outside came the sudden sound of tires screeching, Nia's voice shouting his name. She tracked his location. Don't you dare touch her, DeAndre warned. Chike smiled faintly. Ah, the conscience. Always the weakness. The door burst open and Nia ran in, soaked to the skin. Her eyes locked on Chike. You set him up. I set everyone up, the billionaire said calmly. That's what power is. He turned toward DeAndre. Now choose. Join me and she lives a life of comfort. Defy me, and I'll destroy every person who's ever stood beside you. DeAndre stood still for a long, heavy moment. The rain outside roared like applause. Then he spoke, his voice steady. You're wrong about me, Chike. The billionaire raised an eyebrow. Am I? Yes, DeAndre said. Because this time, when it rains, I'm not the one splashing others. I'm standing in the mud with them. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the flash drive Nia had found. You call this initiation? I call it evidence. And tonight, the world sees the real you. Chike's face darkened. You wouldn't dare. Nia stepped beside him. We already did. At that exact moment, her phone vibrated. A live feed was streaming to multiple news outlets. The confrontation, every word, every threat, was being recorded through her hidden mic. Chike's composure cracked for the first time. You planned this? Nia's eyes were cold and calm. No. We learned from you. Outside, police sirens wailed again, real this time. Chike turned toward DeAndre one last time, his voice low, venomous. You think this ends me? You're standing on the empire I built. When I fall, you fall with me. He threw his glass against the wall, the shards scattering like stars. Within minutes, the police stormed the mansion. Chike didn't resist this time. He simply smiled as they led him away, whispering as he passed DeAndre. Even mud can remember who it once belonged to. DeAndre stood motionless as the lights flashed red and blue across his face. Nia took his hand, squeezing it tight. It's over. But as they stepped outside into the storm, DeAndre looked back at the mansion and whispered, No, Nia. It's just beginning. The morning after the raid, Lagos woke to a different kind of storm. One made of headlines, speculation, and disbelief. Every major news channel played the footage of Chike Okoye's secret confession. The video from Nia's hidden mic had gone viral overnight. It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was a reckoning. The billionaire's empire began to crumble piece by piece. Banks froze his accounts. His partners withdrew their contracts. And for the first time, people saw through the charm that had blinded them for years. But not everyone believed he was truly gone. Some whispered that men like Chike never fall, they only hide. In the quiet of the shelter's small office, DeAndre and Nia sat facing each other. The air was thick with exhaustion, but there was peace in the silence between them. You did it, Nia said softly, her fingers tracing the edge of a tea mug. DeAndre shook his head. We did it. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. You know, when I met him, I thought Chike was everything I wanted to become, confident, powerful, untouchable. I didn't realize he was everything I needed to overcome. Nia smiled faintly. Sometimes the people who break us are the same ones who shape us. He looked at her. And you? What do you want now? She paused, eyes drifting to the window where sunlight struggled through the clouds. Peace. Maybe a little silence. Maybe, to start something that isn't built on pain. DeAndre nodded. Then let's build it together. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. It was an email notification from a name that made her freeze. Chike Okoye at legacytrust.org. She opened it slowly. Congratulations, my children. You have done exactly as I hoped. The empire has been reborn, not destroyed. The shares, the accounts, the ownership, they are now under new management. Yours. Every stone I laid, every storm I caused, every puddle you stepped in, was meant to teach you this. Power is not given. It's inherited by those who dare to take it. The mud always remembers. Attached were scanned legal documents, transfer deeds showing that DeAndre and Nia were now the legal trustees of Chike's global foundation. Nia's hands shook. He transferred everything, to us? DeAndre's voice broke the silence. No, not everything. Just what he wants the world to see. She looked up. What do you mean? Chike doesn't lose, Nia. He retreats. This, he held up the document, isn't surrender. It's strategy. He's made us the face of his empire while he hides in the shadows. Nia's eyes filled with disbelief. Then what do we do? Destroy it? He shook his head. No. We rebuild it the right way. For once, this empire will actually serve the people it was built on. She studied him for a moment, then smiled softly. You sound like a man who finally knows who he is. He met her gaze. A man who finally knows who he doesn't want to be. 2 months later, the world had begun to heal from the chaos. The Okoye Foundation, renamed the River Initiative, opened its first scholarship center in Makoko. Children laughed in clean uniforms. Women worked as mentors and teachers. And Nia, standing beneath the new signboard, felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. DeAndre stood beside her, sleeves rolled up, hammering the last nameplate onto the gate. The sound echoed like closure. Mama Reese approached, clapping her hands. You see how God works? From puddle to palace. They laughed, but behind their laughter lingered memory, the muddy road, the splash, the shame. Nia turned to DeAndre. Do you ever think about that day? He nodded slowly. Every time it rains. And what do you feel? He smiled gently. Grateful. Because that's the day the mud showed me what kind of man I really was, and who I could still become. She reached for his hand. Then let's make sure no one else ever has to feel like that again. They stood there as rain began to fall lightly, drumming against the rooftops. But this time neither of them ran for cover. They let it wash over them, two souls once broken by pride, now cleansed by truth. Far away, in a villa hidden along the Ghanaian coast, a man in a white linen shirt poured himself a drink. The ocean roared behind him. A television nearby played a news segment. The River Initiative, led by Nia Adeyemi and DeAndre Cole, continues to receive praise for its transparency and community impact. The man smiled faintly and raised his glass. To my heirs, he murmured. Let's see what they do with the mud I left behind. He turned off the television, and the room fell silent except for the sound of waves. On his desk lay another sealed envelope, addressed simply to the next generation. Weeks later, Nia found a handwritten note slipped under her office door. No name, no stamp, just a message. Power never dies. It changes hands. She stared at it for a long moment before folding it carefully and locking it away. Then she looked out the window where children were playing, their laughter mingling with the rain. The story had come full circle. Once, a rich man splashed muddy water on a poor girl and laughed. Now that same mud had grown into a river that washed an entire city clean. And as thunder rolled faintly in the distance, Nia whispered to herself, maybe even the mud can be reborn. If you were in Nia's place, after everything, would you trust the empire left behind by the man who betrayed you? Or would you burn it all down to start fresh? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves powerful African folktales that teach truth, redemption, and the strength of the human spirit.